The German village is still haunted by the memory of Frankenstein's monster roaming the hills many years after the fact. These fears are resurrected when Frankenstein's son comes into town after inheriting his father's estate. They don't exactly welcome him with open arms for fear that he may be taking on the family business of creating monsters. And Son of Frankenstein, now this is the third film in the Frankenstein series from Universal Pictures. And this is a special film, I think. This, of course, would be the last time that Boris Karloff, the great Boris Karloff, Karloff the Uncanny, would take on the role of the monster. And a lot of people would view it as kind of like a third part in a trilogy, and I kind of see it that way, too. At the same time, you can kind of almost classify this as being a very early case of, like, let's say, an unnecessary sequel. Because, I mean, with Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, those are two movies that, you know, I like to watch side by side. It's like one big story being told, really, and they come to a conclusion at the end of Bride of Frankenstein. Frankenstein realizes his own mortality or lack thereof, decides he belongs dead. The Dr. Frankenstein, we can assume, stops his work. But, as we find out, he's kind of kept the scientific research at close bay. He's kind of kept it for his son's inheritance, and offers a warning. If you think I'm mad, if you think I'm just this horrible person, throw away this research, don't ever think about it ever again. But if you're like me, and you want to explore the unknown, then here it is for you. And of course, like father, like son, he takes on the research, and that's essentially the plot of the film. Though, one interesting thing to this story is that instead of creating a new monster, like he knows a bit of the research, he's able to keep up with it quite well. But what we learn in this movie is that while Dr. Victor von Frankenstein has passed on, leaving everything to his son, Igor, who we saw in the previous film, he's still alive. And he was, charged with crimes against humanity. He was publicly hanged. But while being pronounced dead, they didn't realize they just broke his neck. So he's actually still technically alive and still kind of hanging around. And another surprise is that he's made pretty good friends with the monster, who is also still alive. But the monster's in some sad shape, and he needs, like a tune-up or something like that. So enter Wolf Frankenstein, the son of Frankenstein, to help out with that and try to gain some kind of control over this creature. The control that really belongs to Igor in this film. So it is about this kind of power struggle between this trio. And one of the best things about this movie has to be Igor, has to be Bela Lugosi's performance. I mean, a lot of people would say that this is his most memorable performance, even more than Dracula. So, I mean, it's an Igor-heavy movie, if that's kind of what you're into, and I think it's highly enjoyable. He's such a great and sinister kind of character, which I really enjoyed through the performance. And this is also a movie where, well, if you're like me, and let's say you've seen, like, Scream and Scary Movie, both an obscene amount of times, they begin to, like, blend in together a little bit. So, like, if I'm watching Scream, I'll expect, like, a joke from Scary Movie to pop in. This is kind of the same way with Son of Frankenstein and Young Frankenstein, which is a movie I talked about earlier this month. Of course, it's the Mel Brooks spoof movie, but this, even more than its kind of send-ups of Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, this takes very heavily from the plot of Son of Frankenstein, where Young Frankenstein is his grandson. Here it's his son, but it's a very similar plot. It's not like beat per beat, like comparing Scary Movie to Scream, but there are some scenes that are very, very similar, obviously taken almost, point per point, at least within those individual scenes, particularly with the inspector character, Krog, the guy with the hand that's like artificial, and you go and things like that. I'm always expecting him to do something crazy and funny in this movie, and he kind of does. Like, he'll like put it up like this, then he'll like take out a handkerchief and rub his monocle or whatever like that. But yeah, this is a direct send-off of that character in Young Frankenstein, which I thought was very funny in that movie, and sometimes funny in this movie. But I do think it's a very strong character, and in addition to Igor, I think one of the highlights of this movie, because this is a movie that is about the conflict between the monster Frankenstein and Igor, but also between Frankenstein and this Inspector Krogh, where he has a personal stake in this. We learn that this artificial arm, this came from an encounter with the Frankenstein monster when he was just a little boy. So it's always kind of traumatized him, and knowing that Frankenstein is kind of back in business, so to speak, he becomes very alert to the possibility that he may be taking on his father's work, which he is, and kind of in the guise of friendly visits, he's always kind of keeping a close eye on him. But where other movies may turn him into like a direct antagonist, like, I'm going to take you away to jail, you motherfucker, or whatever, here, I mean, you do sense that this character, he cares for Frankenstein. He cares for the fact that he seems like a good man. He's a family man. He has his wife. He has his child. He's just kind of going down the wrong path, I guess. And he does care for him, and he is kind of looking out for his best interests. So I thought that was a good aspect to the movie, and kind of this cat and mouse kind of game where, all that considered, it's all an original story that we don't have the source for, like with Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein before it. They were, I mean, more or less, they were taken from Mary Shelley's novel. Here it's an original story with new characters, which, well, aside from Igor and the monster, but I thought they were able to seamlessly blend in the tone of those two movies. So while it is, you could argue it is an unnecessary sequel where the story was resolved, but here's this is like a reboot, I don't know, but I think they really kept it consistent, and I think this is just about as good as Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, so I think it's a movie worth seeing. I mean, I know a lot of people who want to familiarize themselves with the Frankenstein films, but maybe not delve too deep, like maybe not get past Bride of Frankenstein, may feel reasonable to avoid this one, but I say it's worth checking out for the great story, for the great characters, and it's Karloff's final run as the monster. That's a landmark kind of thing. This is the very last Boris Karloff as the monster Frankenstein movie. They would appear in House of Frankenstein, but not as the monster itself. So I think he's as good as he ever was. Though maybe it's a little weird that he has like this furry jacket on the whole movie. Like, I don't know, it's a weird kind of, but it differentiates it, so it's all right. But the Frankenstein series is excellent, and this keeps up the great work. It's at least a great trilogy. If you don't want to go past this one, I understand, but this one, for anyone who's seen the first two and kind of like, I'm okay stopping there, I say check this out. I think it's a great film. So that's my review of Son of Frankenstein. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Visit Derek237.com. And until next time, I'll see you later.